UCSB's Department of Theater and Dance offers an outreach program called Shakespeare and Me. It provides local students with an opportunity to learn about Shakespeare. Let's take a look.
Shakespeare's working on sounds that come from inside, a visceral response. His language was a very meaty, chewy, thick sound, right? So what we're going to be doing today is playing with the sounds of Shakespeare's language in small, bite-sized chunks. I'm going to offer you some little pieces of paper. I'll just be throwing out lines. You'll repeat them back to me and play with them. We're going to explore the ways in which those sounds that you take into your mouth might affect your body to make you move.
Last week when we were here, we did some playing around with Midsummer Night's Dream. Theseus was considered to be the lawgiver, the heroic warrior king of Athens, ruled Athens, supposedly a man of high intelligence, military might, great power, and persuasive capability, perhaps. She's saying these things for the first time. See what discoveries you're making in the way that this passion, this newfound interest in this other person, threatens to take away some of yourself.
My name's Heather Sanford, and my title is Academic Coordinator, which means that I manage the programs I've been developing, which are the Shakespeare in the Schools programs. And I also am a lecturer. I taught an advanced acting class for the BA students in the theater department. Some people hear Shakespeare and go, it's just old language. I want to turn that on its head and remind you, or make you think about the idea that Shakespeare is actually writing at a time when English is a much younger language than it is now. Shakespeare's English is growing very rapidly. He's writing at a time when there really isn't a dictionary, there's no internet. People have to understand words they hear. How? They can't look it up. He's making up words right and left. He makes up thousands of words, at least 1,500 or 1,800 words we still use today are things he first wrote in his plays. The title is Shakespeare and Me. I keep on wanting to emphasize the ways in which it's a personal encounter with a text as opposed to something that exists outside of yourself on the page over there, some idealized Platonic idea of Hamlet, Ophelia, Laertes, that it's more about how do you, an 18-year-old, a 14-year-old, an 8-year-old, how do you digest the words on that page and connect to some ideas Shakespeare's putting out there for you, images, experiences of the characters, the story of the characters. I'd like to begin by reinforcing the idea that there is no such thing as Othello or Desdemona or Iago. There are some words on a page that we managed to edit and put together, and there are you people, and there are our voices and our bodies, and there is how those words affect you, and you, and you. That's all it is, and I want to make sure that you appreciate that you're important, and it's not your job to create the perfect Othello, Desdemona, or Iago, okay?
Today, the fabulous Heather Sanford came up to work with my classes who are reading Macbeth and Othello, and she came to work with the classes to have them act out various passages and have some physical, theatrical dynamism to their reading and their understanding of how to read Shakespeare.
Okay, so while you're moving through the space, you're going to be mindful of each other. Let's just begin slowly as if we're walking in slow motion. Just moving around, covering as much of this space as you possibly can, making sure you don't run into anyone or anything. Now look at a partner near you. Any old partner will do. Find someone to talk to and find that person, stand with him. 'Tis a pageant to keep us in false gaze. 'Tis a pageant to keep us in false gaze.
So she does some warm-up exercises. There's probably no clientele in the world more self-conscious than people who are in high school. And so kids are uncomfortable breaking out of their familiar modes, especially in a class setting. But she does warm-up exercises with the kids that are playful and engaging, and she draws them right in. And she gives them various exercises to get their bodies moving expressively, giving them permission to be playful. And that's my favorite part, is to see kids who are reading Shakespeare, and it is a slog for some, to see them begin to really enjoy on a physical level what they're saying. And then after she gets a level of comfort and trust and playfulness, she'll start to integrate the Shakespearean language. And by that time, you're happy to put gestures with words. And as the kids said when they were debriefing from one of the sessions, one of the kids just said, I was really uncomfortable about coming to do this today, but I have to admit it was really fun. And they had a great time.
To be completely honest, I came in a little apprehensive, a little nervous, but through the exercises and being involved with my other classmates, I learned that little by little and minute by minute, we all opened up and found new ways to express ourselves.
The most challenging thing for me was probably interacting with those people that I don't really talk to as much, and it just kind of being more outgoing and
putting myself out there a little bit more than I usually do in front of this group of people.
I personally don't love Shakespeare. I can appreciate it, but I'm definitely not going to pick it up on my own free will and like read it by the fire or anything. But I think it just developed my appreciation for Shakespeare even more, and it's a full body experience as opposed to just kind of a mental exercise.
We are working essentially using something called archetypes. Looking around here, look at this. We have sovereign. Of course, you all know what a sovereign is. Queen or king, it's a leader, it's a ruler. Then over here we have warrior. So trickster, but it's someone who plays games. And then the last one over here is the carer, someone who's a caring figure.
We kind of explored Shakespeare in like a different way than just reading the text, which made it easier to understand what's going on like in the characters' minds, as well as like just Shakespeare's thought process when writing it.
Today was an interesting day because we got to sort of experience Shakespeare in a more natural way, as it's kind of meant to be, and it's performance art in a more physical setting.
well, I think it's a good opportunity to work with someone who obviously has a lot of experience at the university level, and to see a different side of Shakespeare, and kind of learn about things in a way that's more unorthodox that you don't usually get to do in school.
It gave me a new outlook on how to read the characters and how to visualize the characters and how to analyze them.
At this moment, not in your entire life, but right now, which one of these do you feel most represents you? Would you please go stand near the sign that most represents how you're feeling right now?
I think it helped us to be able to identify the archetypes and help us not only identify ourselves as an archetype, but also be able to recognize it in other characters and how other characters may have multiple archetypes.
All right, so at least one line solo, and you can choose to say others, but use the first 10 or 12 lines or so everybody has a chance to say something plus group work, okay? And so I'm hoping that, first of all, the basic workshop that I do is meant to help them associate theater, Shakespeare with theatricality, and therefore with playfulness, and with the notion that emotions can be large, and language can be large, and language can allow you to express those huge emotions that teenagers, as most of us are, but especially in adolescence, are just wrestling with and roiling with, and give them a chance to say, there's language for this. It's not just, you don't have to just hit somebody. There are ways you can express all that's going on inside of you using language. And Shakespeare offers us that opportunity.
Now I call it our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days bringing another moon, but oh, methinks how slow this old moon swains.
I put together a course for the BFA juniors, acting students, to help them see what it's like to be engaged in community education in Shakespeare in the Schools program. So when the opportunity came up to offer a course here to teach some of the BFA students what it was like to doing that outreach work, then I thought, well, I could also offer some scenes so that the students in the classroom have a chance to see people who are close to their own ages performing, mastering, embodying, playing with the language. Having these kids here who are trained and are so close in age to the high school and middle school students made it seem so accessible and so connectable, I think, for those middle school and high school students. And that's my thing. My thing is not so much that Shakespeare becomes, they're all Shakespearean actors someday, but that they appreciate that they can themselves tackle all kinds of challenges in terms of language and poetry and just theatricality, expressing themselves. And so seeing these students who have had the opportunity for a few years here to train their voices and bodies to be that elastic and that flexible and playful seemed to be a great chance to share with the high school and middle school students all the possibilities of being more theatrical themselves.
As a department, we are always looking for ways to invite people from the community to be a part of our curriculum. We are so thankful that we live in a place where we have even a UC in our backyard and we are able to utilize those resources. Heather has been instrumental in bringing Shakespeare to life in my eyes in the last 2 years. She comes with a lot of energy and a lot of new ideas, and she shocks the students and is willing to work with the students and be flexible and pull them out of their comfort zones in very high pressure situations for them. They are very, at times afraid of what their peers will think, and she's able to just make them feel comfortable and at home and try new things. And we are so grateful to have her be willing to come to San Marcos and other schools within the district to work with our students.
Studying Shakespeare, it's always been like a little bit hard for me to understand, but seeing this group come out and like perform, and it just kind of made me like understand like emotions that are going on throughout the play.
I think the whole world of Shakespeare is like really interesting. It's just kind of hard to understand at first, but once you really get an idea of like what's going on and what the words mean, it's really something fascinating to kind of dive into.
Oh, I thought it was really fun to get this opportunity, especially the fact that I got to volunteer and just be with them and be in the whole scene.
Let's see what happens if we have Theseus and Hippolyta play a much more flirtatious romantic comedy version of this relationship.
What was interesting is that we got to see a bunch of different interpretations of the scene. So the relationships between the characters, the way they said the dialogue, the emotions, the actions they took, it all changed with each interpretation. And it was really interesting to see where it could go. And it made me realize that you could actually do the most insane, like craziest, wild thing with any interpretation.
Heather's class is an opportunity to be able to teach Shakespeare to high schoolers across Santa Barbara County. We've been as far up as Santa Ynez and as far down as Carpinteria, and we've been given several opportunities to be able to teach and to be able to work directly with the high schoolers and and in one case middle school as well, and just be able to get them to embrace Shakespeare as a fun and entertaining entity that it is. It's been a really fun class so far.
The sense of really listening and being there and present, and today kids are always they're on their phones, they're thinking about other things, talking to their friends, but when we're able to get a kid hooked on and they're listening and watching and trying all the things with you, they might not be doing it full out, but to know that they're risking themselves and putting themselves out there only allows them later in life to accept who they really are and hopefully, try what they really love to do. And if it is theater, I'm glad that we were that stepping stone for them. And if it's not theater, hopefully they've found out that, it helps with their presence of who they are and how they walk and their attitude and things like that. And so I just think it's important that we keep arts and Shakespeare because it allows us to connect with humanity so much further than just a piece of text reading in a classroom together.
Personally, I think it's very important because if I had had the exposure that we're giving them, I think I would have appreciated it very much because, I was very into that stuff when I was in high school and I never really got to see Shakespeare in performance and I never got to be exposed to that. But I also think aside from the people that are interested in theater, I think theater in general is such an incredible outlet for students. And then you go to school and you see the light that comes out of these students and you see how much they appreciate your presence in that classroom and how much they appreciate that somebody's listening to them, that somebody wants to hear what they have to say, that somebody cares about how they're feeling. Not only does it introduce them to Shakespeare as not this intimidating language, but it also introduces them to the wider aspect of art and theater and what that means as far as their voices and what they can contribute to society.
What I can take away from this experience is that I am a better teacher than I thought I was before this. I can command a room and still be fun, and I can be fun and educational, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, this work that we're doing is really important because, first off, Shakespeare is just incredible text, and the performance of Shakespeare is amazing. And I think that that's something that in high school you don't realize. And in high school, the arts are not given as much of a priority as other subjects, other aspects of education. And we believe strongly that arts really changes lives.
I didn't understand that. Save from my glass.
Today is a stage in our journey of getting ready for our Shakespeare production in the spring. And we've done the work of picking the pieces and memorizing the pieces, and we've talked about iambic pentameter, and we've done a little work with phonetics in terms of pronunciation. And so the students are ready to take it to the next level, which is to really personalize the performances of these pieces. And I thought no better person to bring in than Heather Sanford, who we worked with last year and my students adore.
One of my goals is to find workshop chances to work with teachers themselves so that they can learn the techniques and use this in the classroom without relying totally on my being there.